Speaker and members, we find ourselves here 2 months into the legislative session, a rapid pace. For those of you keeping score at home, Democrats have already, before we have a budget resolution that determines how much money each committee gets to suspend or give back in tax relief, Democrats have already spent $2 billion of the $19 billion surplus. And I say 19, it's actually greater than 19. If you take the money that we spent in the current biennium, we will have more than 19 billion new money to spend in the next biennium. And I say spend because here at the Capitol, unfortunately, we call tax relief spending as well. So certainly, I think Minnesotans expect in this time, when Democrat, with record Democrat inflation, 8% year over year, people paying more for their gas, more for their groceries, and Democrats are on a spending and now a borrowing spree. So $2 billion, if you're keeping score at home, $2 billion already in spending, a little more than that. This bill now, $2 billion in borrowing, so we're not just, this is over on top of the $19 billion surplus. $2 billion of borrowing and zero tax relief. Zero money for you, Minnesotans. Zero. So if you're keeping score at home, Democrats' priority is to bring a bill to the House floor to borrow $2 billion when we have more than $19 billion surplus. They've already spent $2 billion of that. And we wonder why people at home think we're crazy. And I assure you, if this was your checkbook and your register that you were keeping track, you wouldn't be this foolish with your money. But it's very easy when it's not your money. And whoever said, for every Minnesotan is going to have to pay for this, I guess if you count sales tax, every Minnesotan probably pays some. But I think on income tax, we're at a point where less than half of Minnesotans now pay income tax. Or about half pay income tax. And those are the people that are paying the higher inflation, the higher gas prices, Have you been to the grocery store lately? Have you tried to refinance your mortgage lately? I can't believe how much groceries are. I'm just one single guy, and I buy for my dog too, I guess. She eats human food now. But I can't believe how much the groceries cost. Have you tried to refinance your mortgage or buy a house? Housing prices have come down a little bit, not a lot yet. But the mortgage interest rates have more than doubled in 10 months. 10 months, they've more than doubled. That affects Minnesotans' buying power, Minnesota families' buying power. But here we are in the legislature thinking somehow it makes sense when we have the not just the largest surplus in state history, we have double the largest surplus in state history. More than double the surplus that we've ever had. And 2 months into a 5-month session, we're borrowing $2 billion. Not to mention the projects, I'm not going to go through the list. But I do want to talk about, somebody mentioned paying for the police station in Edina. Police, fire, a building for your city hall, for your city council to meet in, those are local property tax issues. My taxpayers in my district don't need to pay for a police station in Edina. And they also, as we've already talked about, don't need to pay for the school lunches for kids in Edina. That is not a need in the state of Minnesota. A police station in Edina, Minnesota isn't a need for a taxpayer, a low-income taxpayer in my district, living in a trailer park. But especially when we have a $19 billion surplus. But the priorities of this majority are somehow, we have more than twice as much money as we've ever had, and somehow we can't find enough money to pay for that. So we have to borrow the money, incur debt and debt service and interest payments, and then put that on the shoulders of people in my district. So in the future, fire stations, police stations, city halls are not things that should be in a bonding bill. And I'm not trying to chide you right now. Just pay attention. I'm going to do you a favor. Because if you put one in, there's a whole hallway of people out here who will go out and talk to every city and every county and every township in the state and put them on contract, because they'll go to those cities and say, well, you gave it to Edina, and if you hire me, I can get you one. And your office is going to be inundated with lobbyists coming to ask for city halls, fire stations, and police stations. It's just about as logical as saying that local government aid or county program aid is tax relief. Never in the history of the state has giving LGA or CPA, county program aid or local government aid, reduced property taxes. That's spending. That's taking state tax dollars and giving them to cities and counties. We already do that. I can't remember the number to the city of Minneapolis in LGA. Is it 90 million? Somebody nod? 50 million, 90 million? I can't remember. And a city that has, I don't know, 60% of the police officers that they should have, and we still have to pay them money from the state. And they get all that commercial property tax that my district doesn't get. But my district still has to subsidize the city of Minneapolis. You see a problem yet? What we need to do as a legislature is get back to the basics. Let's provide the things that are outlined in our Constitution, which is a good education. Let's provide public safety. Let's make sure that we provide the road and bridge infrastructure. And I think lately we've seen a big need for water infrastructure, both wastewater and drinking water infrastructure. I think if you had a bill that stuck to those things, you'd probably have a unanimous vote out of here today. But unfortunately, when we stick the pork projects in, you lose a bunch of votes. And especially at a time when we've got twice the largest surplus we've ever had in state history. But Minnesotans are watching. Minnesotans very, very narrowly put Democrats in charge of this state, but they are watching at home. They're watching what you're doing. You made promises to them. You said you were going to exempt their Social Security income. Now the little buzz around the Capitol is that's not going to happen because you can't afford it. You can't afford all the spending that you want to do and still exempt Social Security income. And the proof of that is that we're borrowing $2 billion today. So Minnesotans who voted for Democrats, thinking this was going to be a good thing, listening to their promises about exempting Social Security income from state income tax, take heed. Because the evidence of borrowing $2 billion when we have twice the largest surplus we've ever had in state history should be all the evidence you need that Democrats are absolutely going to break their promise to you. And I'm going to keep a little tally sheet back here at my desk. Every time they break their promises and lie to Minnesotans, I'm going to keep track, and then I'll remind you of it throughout the session. Members, I think you know where I stand. There isn't anybody in here who should vote for this bill. Nobody. So please vote no. Let's show a little restraint, a little common sense. Let's get down to the work that's defined in our Constitution and the work that we know Minnesotans want us to do.